Hello, everybody who we see or do not see on this call. I'd like to welcome you for joining this amazing interview that we're about to have. And my name is Liz Lewinson, and I'm the CEO of the Lenz Foundation. The Frederick P. Lenz Foundation for American Buddhism began operations in 2002. And since that time, we've given out over $9 million in grants to about 300 Buddhist groups. We have a broad definition of Buddhism. It's around meditation and mindfulness. So we have a variety, very diverse set of grants that have been given out. And in 24 to 25, we launched a theme, and it was Women Leaders in Buddhism. About 60 grants were given out on that topic. And we found that as we read the reports, there were amazing results. The idea behind this theme is that it is a core teaching of our founder. He said that women are innately powerful, and his point, strongly made repeatedly, is that until women come into their full inherent power, the world will always be out of balance. There will always be cruelty, wars, and oppression. And because we see that women are not, they've been repressed for millennia in every single way, and women are just starting to come out of that repression. So this leads to why we also subtitled this series Empowering Women in the Dharma. It's about a complete shift and switch, and for the benefit of the world and the planet. So we began these programs after the reports came in. There was a question about impact. Everyone totaled, our Women in Buddhism grants totaled 1.6 million people. And so every time we even have one of these gatherings, we feel like it's having a huge impact, or any women's gatherings for that matter. We don't get territorial about this. But we did start in late 25 with having meetings. People who got the grants came, met each other. It was really high and wonderful to talk about progress. We're now on a second phase where we have these speakers who've been facilitated by Susan Shea, who I'll introduce in just a minute. But we also have an advisory committee, and those people are volunteers, and they contribute to our different things that we talk about. And as you'll see on the screen there, Jom Cho, Diana Finnegan, Dr. Esmilda Abro, Hornbustel, Keegan Anna Breckenridge, Irene Rockwell, Tara Templin, and I mentioned Susan already. So with that group and their input, we're gone ahead and we're teaching, people are teaching. We decided to have themes according to the seasons. And we've had, for winter, we started this year, Diane Musho Hamilton. Spring was Judy Leaf. And of course, today, Susan will be talking about the program. So I'm going to turn this over now to Dr. Susan Shea, and she is our facilitator. She is a leadership coach, organizational consultant, and she founded and taught the Authentic Leadership program at Naropa University for 20 years, continues to teach today. So with that, we'll get started. Thank you, Susan.
Great. Thank you so much, Liz. Welcome, everyone. So good to see you all here today. I think I've seen many of you before, but there are also some new faces, so wonderful. Let's begin with just a short period of practice. Let's start by just connecting with our bodies and feeling our feet on the ground, or if you're seated on a cushion, just notice the stability of your legs and your seat, connecting with the ground. bringing awareness into our torso. And I think in many of our different lineages, we talk about having a soft front and a strong back. So let's feel into that right now. Bringing awareness into the neck and shoulders and the head. And now just become aware of your whole body. Bring attention to your breathing. Just letting your breath flow in and out quite naturally. You can put some attention to the heart. And setting our intention that our practice and our time together today can be of benefit to all. Bringing awareness to the mind, noticing the quality of our thoughts, the speed or slowness of our thinking, or no thinking, and just welcoming all of it. Gently bringing ourselves into presence together with our community here today. Thank you. I'll do just a brief overview of what we have in mind for today. So I'll share a couple of slides. All right, so what are our objectives? As Liz mentioned, we have been having this speaker series, and it's been wonderful to hear from exemplar women leaders. And we're going to continue on for the rest of the year. We have 2 more planned, and we'll be letting you know more about that as the time draws nearer. Our next session will be on September 28th. So we're learning from these exemplar women how they are leading, and we're wanting to learn from their journey and apply this to our own journeys. Another really important thing that we feel we want to invite everyone into is networking and also building this community. I know many of you have really enjoyed the breakout rooms and just getting to know people from very different sanghas. So let's continue doing that today. Yeah, we've had our welcome. We'll be hearing from Roshi Joan Halifax and Pamela Ayo Yetunde. We'll have a Q&A. So if you have questions, keep them in mind, and we'll have 10 or 15 minutes for Q&A toward the end of the interview. And then a special treat, we'll have some leadership skill building with Esmilda Abreu, and that'll be very, very good. We'll be able to bring that then into our breakout sessions, as well as what we're learning from Roshi Joan, and then we'll come back for a large group conversation. Okay, so with that, I would like to introduce Roshi Joan, who probably needs no introduction, but what the heck, I'll go ahead and do it anyway. So Roshi Joan is the founder, abbot, and head teacher of Upaya Zen Center in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Her vision embraces comprehensive Buddhist studies, meditation, service, Dharma art, and environmental action as integrated paths that cultivate peace and interconnectedness. She's also been influenced by early experiences as an anthropologist, world traveler, and passionate end-of-life pioneer. And her work in social and ecological activism, she eloquently teaches the interwoven nature of engaged Buddhism and contemplative practice. Welcome, Roshi Joan. And Roshi will be interviewed by Pamela Ayo Yetunde. Ayo was a teacher in Upaya's chaplaincy program, and she's the author of many, many books, but some of them, Casting Indra's Net, Fostering Spiritual Kinship and Community, two academic books on Buddhist womanism, and the co-editor of Black and Buddhist, What Buddhism Can Teach Us About Race, Resilience, Transformation, and Freedom. Ayo was an associate editor for Lion's Roar and the principal co-founder of Buddhist Justice Reporter. She's also a pastoral counselor and has worked in many different settings. Welcome, Ayo.
Thank you.
So glad to have you both here.
Delighted to be here. So shall we begin?
That
Yeah,
sounds
okay.
wonderful, but
Let's
I just
do
want
it.
to thank you, Io. It's so great
Oh,
to see you again.
thank you.
And also, I just want to thank Lenz and this team of extraordinary women for putting this series together. It's really important at this time. So deep appreciation.
And Roshi spoke for me as well. Deep appreciation. So we'll
Thank
jump
you.
into it because
I
our-
appreciate this.
yeah, our time is short. So I'm going to jump into it, Roshi. First, I want to say there's something about when I see you and I interact with you, I smile. And I laugh and I giggle. And I think if people don't know you, they don't know that you have a sense of humor that is deep and wide. And I remember just laughing with you when I was at Upaya last. So I just want to say that about you. Great sense of humor.
Thank you. I think humor and joy are really important in our roles today as women, but also as leaders, women
Mhm.
leaders.
Yeah. Well, then, since you brought that up, let's start there. Why is humor and joy important for Buddhist women leaders at this time?
I really look on this kind of rising mind or the mind that is characterized, the mind heart that is characterized by a sense of wise hope, by the capacity to actually bring the sort of deep joy that is in our very marrow, to bring it forward as a kind of blessing to others. But it's spontaneous. It's not like I'm going to perform joy. In other words,
Mhm.
joy has to be authentic. It has to be spontaneously flowing from the very heart of your being. And I've seen, because I've started various institutions, a number of projects. I've worked really hard in my life. And now I'm, in my ninth decade. I'll be 84 in a few weeks. And I know what hard work is, and I also know what it is to be weighed down by hard work. And also, as a woman, the odds were kind of against me, being in, being a female-bodied person in relation to any kind of success or accomplishment. In fact, I have to tell you a little stupid thing, but my father really wanted me to be an airline stewardess. I mean, his motivation, I think, was he wanted, cheap airline tickets. And years later, I teased him about it, and I said, in a way, I am here to serve coffee, tea, and milk. I feel like an airline stewardess, but of a certain kind, not the kind that is necessarily on an airplane. But I certainly am on an airplane of sorts. That is, starting a monastery, starting, all these projects and they've taken flight. Many of them, much of what I've done has taken flight.
not flight in the sense of disappearing, but have risen into some kind of field of goodness. And I think that this has happened in part by dropping away, in part through practice and in part through age, of the sense of heaviness or of a desire to accomplish something. Whereas at this point, I don't have that desire to accomplish anything. I just simply do with what is before me, and that brings me joy, truly. And as as a so-called woman leader, I feel more like a follower. I'm more like a responsive entity, but whatever. I know that my internal space affects other people. People look to me for a kind of sense of, what, how does she feel about what is unfolding? And if I approach it from the point of view of burden or heaviness or worry or fear, um, if there's not faith, joy, and also virya, a sense of wholeheartedness, that will affect things in terms of, or affect people in ways that I think are really not so helpful.
Hmm.
But joy has to be real. I mean, like my humor, as Ayo knows me well. It it is actually, I think I got it from my father. He was he was very funny, but without and also kind of understated. Maybe I'm a little louder than he is. But nonetheless, it has to be real, and joy is essential. I'm reminded of I have a very close friend who's a writer. Her name is Terry Tempest Williams. And we talk a lot about open democracy and how we actually can support the space of open democracy, something that is not quite available at this time here
Hmm.
and in many other places. And she said something beautiful in this November program that happens at Upaya with Terry and Rebecca Solnit and Valerie Brown, now um, Molly Crockett. She says, finding beauty in a broken world is creating beauty in the world we find. I think that's, in a way, our assignment. That is the work of women leaders today. That is creating beauty in the world we find, no matter how broken the world is.
Thank you. And you've done that. You're doing it. And sometimes when I think about you and chuckle, I don't know if you'll appreciate this, but um, Thich Nhat Hanh wrote about Lady Mahamaya giving birth to bodhisattvas. And you have given birth to many bodhisattvas. I don't know if you see your work as such, but think about the number of people who've graduated from your programs, who've gone to programs where there weren't certificates. Um, that these educational centers, the Ojai Foundation, the Upaya Zen Center, were places that you envisioned and created and co-created when there were already other Zen centers that people could have gone to. So as a leader and a visionary, what did you think then was the beauty that needed to be created in the world in 79 when you founded Ojai and in 92 when you founded Upaya?
You know, I think really since my childhood, I've been aware of the brokenness of the world. And what made a huge difference in my life, I think you know this story. I had polio when I was a child, and it affected my eyes. And the result was that my eye muscles ended up non-functioning. My eyes rolled into the top of my head for 2 years, and I was paralyzed on my left side. So, that is actually you know, apropos of that story, um, what I discovered in that experience were a couple of important things, Io, that opened the path for me. One was that I had an interior life. But the second thing that was just extraordinary was that my parents brought in a woman who had her mother had been a slave. And this woman, Lila Robinson, a Black woman, a church woman, she had natural joy. And even though I was in this pretty stressful situation, also my parents were very worried about me. And so there was this kind of transmission of worry, needless to say.
Hmm.
But my primary caregiver ended up being Lila. And she vaccinated me with joy and also with music and with fun, but also with this kind of spirit of service. And that has led, me through my life in a way that, I was in my 20s during the 60s. Needless to say, the civil rights movement, the anti-war movement was very much in our foreground as young people, and I was deeply involved with both. And then through, you know, long story, but seeing the brokenness in the world, but also with, kind of Lila's seed inside my heart, wanting to actually create the conditions where people could actualize the best in themselves to bring to others.
Hmm.
So that's, a little bit of what happened at the Ojai Foundation. It's what I hope has happened at Upaya Zen Center.
Hmm. Okay. Thank you. Um, well, the proof is in the pudding, so you can put your
Thank
hope
you.
aside. The proof is in the pudding. Um, you know, I'm thinking about what you started off saying in terms of being in your ninth decade now and not wanting to strive to accomplish. And I'm glad you don't feel that way at this age, right?
Yeah.
However, going
However,
back to the 20s, like you said, in the 60s, you were, you were preparing for a life of accomplishing some things. Um, and now, at least in the United States and in many parts of the world, the forces of oppression are
visible.
appearing in this way.
Yeah.
And also, in particular, targeting women who have a sense of themselves, agency, and aren't asking for permission to speak and do. So, given what you experienced in your 20s, what do women leaders need now for the challenges, the political challenges that are before us right now?
Well, I think the first thing is don't ask for permission, period. I think that is just, we felt we had to ask for permission.
Mm,
We do not ask for permission anymore. We act, we speak, we meet adversity, we run for office, we're abbots, we're religious leaders, we're writing books. And don't, by the way, Io, don't think that I'm, not on fire. I am on
okay.
fire.
Oh, I didn't.
Okay. My fires actually, I've just kind of shifted my emphasis. I don't know if you know, but if you go
Mm,
onto Upaya's website and you look under teachings and under the thing writings, I just produced, 15 long essays on lots of things, including, Dogen and koans,
mm,
on social action and so on. I want to, create a body of work that might live after me if it's of any use to people, which will be accessible, in a way that people can say, well, here's a woman who, against all odds, including health challenges and gender and age and so forth, who never let up, but always let go. And I think that is, really yeah, very much in my character at this time. I think in part because, you and I had a brief exchange about it. A year ago, I had two open heart surgeries, 13 days apart. And it was very touch and go whether or not I would actually survive. And I'm still in recovery, which is kind of shifted my ground. I'm not able to climb mountains right now, although I'm at 9,400 feet in my hermitage, but I'm not going up the mountainside right now. But it's produced actually another situation for me, which is the time and to actually write furiously but
Mhm.
happily,
Mhm.
with lots of energy about things that I feel are really important to be heard now, and I hope will support a future for not only women, but for all of us. Um, it reminds me of this koan. A monk asked Basho, what's the essence of your practice? And one translation says, whatever. Basho replies, he says, whatever is needed. So I'm
Mhm.
trying to do what is needed right now, but
Mhm.
it's also because I'm still teaching a lot. I'm, deeply involved in the administrative body of Upaya. We're just doing the post-pandemic work of restructuring Upaya, and that is long and deep work. And part of that is, in the pandemic, just an aside, but um, we went into our bubble, so to speak, and now that bubble is widening, into this big, online and also hybrid work, on-site, online teachings that we offer at Upaya. But the other thing is we lost the thread of direct action in our local community, and we're
Mhm.
reconstituting or strengthening that thread because I think we have to
Mhm.
be local as well as global.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
I think women my age have, and a lot of women my age have been through a lot of health issues and also relationship issues and vocational issues. And we become more, in Zen we call it Robai Shin, more grandmother's heart, which is not a sappy heart. It's a heart that has what could I say? The heart that's seen a lot of life
Mhm.
and that now has a big smile in it when we see the sandcastles of our democracy being swept away, or
Right.
the issues of our own physical mortality more powerfully in front of us, or our students struggling, or the environment being crushed by the consumerism and extractive corporate world that we are witnessing and protesting against. By the way, Jane Fonda, who's a friend of mine, that's another amazing woman who
Yeah.
is unstoppable.
Mhm.
And, I just want to say some of us, get kind of stopped for a while. Some of us stop, but others of us stop and we keep going.
Mhm.
And I would
Yeah.
say Jane is one of those.
Yeah. Indeed, and so are you.
Well,
And yeah, I mean, you're talking about, and you were clear, even though I don't know if I said anything to spark this. You didn't want me to mistake you as someone who's closing down, but
okay.
as someone who is on fire. And that's good because we're talking about the season of summer, heat. Um, so, and also you talked about not asking for permission. I'm so glad you said that. One of the things that got me thinking when you said that was you went through a litany of accomplishments that women have made over the years. And so to not ask for permission, which was part of the strategy years ago, is no longer needed. Yet, I'm guessing that a lot of people still have been acculturated to ask for permission and to apologize for even asking. You remember
Uh,
how we were conditioned? I'm sorry, can I ask a question? I'm sorry, may I interject here? May I speak here? This recalling the contributions of women who are still alive and also our ancestors who
yeah.
have left so much for us so that we don't have to ask for permission. I just wanted to underscore that. And then also to say, Roshi, I'm so glad that you know, and I think this is part of being a good leader, that you have to have some amount of confidence in what you're thinking, saying, and doing, such that you're pulling your work together as a legacy. Um, do you want to say more
Well,
about the confidence that you have and how you have lived, what you have said, what you've written, that you can say, I want to pull it together now, y'all. I'm pulling this together for y'all.
well, a couple of things. One is I'm confident I made a lot of mistakes,
Okay.
and there's just no question about it. I'm still making mistakes, but the mistakes are just the best teachings in the world. I don't think I've learned anything from my accomplishments. I've learned from my
Hmm.
errors in,
Mm-hmm.
in judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And I stand not beaten by my mistakes, but really my life is enlarged through going off the rails in many different ways. And so that's one thing I wanted to say. But
Okay.
I wanted to, I'm going to do a parenthetical.
All right.
You know, I was a student of Sung Song, a very powerful Korean teacher for 11 years. And then I'd met Thai in the mid 60s. And as you know, I became very inspired by this convergence between being a social activist and a contemplative. So that really set me on my path in the mid 60s. And then I had the opportunity to become Thai's formal student in the 80s. And then at that point, from the 80s to the early 90s, Thai, the Buddha was the Sangha, which was beautiful, but it wasn't as socially engaged and gritty as is my character. So I began to practice with Glassman Roshi. And he gave me Inca in the late 90s, which made me, a Roshi. When he told me he was going to do this, I was like, you got to be kidding. It was, you know, I felt like I'm not a status person at all. And the last thing I ever imagined would be, being a Zen Roshi, and it just seemed absurd. And I
Mhm.
went to bed that night, and when I thought about it as I was in bed, and then early in the morning, I realized, I'm one of the few Western women or few women who's been given Inca Shumei. And actually, don't be stupid, Halifax. Um, let this person acknowledge you and do it for women. It's not about you in the sort of sense of an identity. It's about women, that women can actually be acknowledged as Zen mistresses or Zen masters, can be acknowledged for their practice and can be entrusted to transmit the Dharma. And I met with Bernie the next day and I felt very humble, needless to
Mm.
say. But I said, Bernie, this is interesting to step into, but the way you're communicating it to me, I'm not stepping into it. It is actually that it is my job now to actually sit in this seat
Mm.
responsibly, but also fearlessly. And I decided to do something that not many people have done, and which is I asked my students to call me Roshi. Now, let me just say it means old teacher. So, I was getting older then, not as old as I am now. Be like venerable teacher, old teacher, but old teacher seemed in a way kind of affectionate. Hello, old teacher. Um, and my students began to call me Roshi. And I began to lose this other part of my life out of being called Roshi, the Joan part of my life. So when people call me Joan, I don't know who they're talking to, actually.
Mm.
Now, let me just, so some people feel quite irritated by the fact that I'm called Roshi, and I acknowledge their irritation. And recently I was interviewed by somebody, who's interviewing all old Zen teachers. And he said, with a little bit of disparagement in his voice, well, you're the first person that I've interviewed who asked me to call them Roshi. And of course, I internally smiled and I said, thank you. And then so on. Because one must stand in the entrustments that have been
Mhm.
opened up for one. And there's humbleness and there's humility, but there's also the sense of confidence in, how important it is that we stand in the roles of leadership, not out of a sense of unworthiness or worthiness, but out of a sense that of inclusiveness. And that is characterized, and I love what Thich Nhat Hanh, calls equanimity. He translates it as inclusiveness. And it is to be in the role of a leader, a Roshi, a reverend, a president one day, a vice president again, I hope, where that we stand, in these roles of authority and responsibility with humility, joy, faith, and confidence.
Mhm. 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 Mm. You know, I'm glad you shared that because I mean, all of that. There are those little digs sometimes,
Oh, yeah.
those little digs that sometimes, if we're not aware, we become aware later
Yeah.
and it eats at us, right?
Well, it
When
doesn't
we,
eat at me. I thought it was pretty dumb of him. I felt sorry for him, actually.
yeah,
I mean,
but
I feel compassion for people. I'll tell you
mhm,
another one. So,
okay.
I'm on social media, and one of my charnel grounds is X or Twitter.
Oh,
And
oh, can't stop us.
I know. So, and I have,
Yeah.
somewhat of a substantial following there.
Yeah.
And so during the last election, I put this kind of happy picture of myself, and I said, I I know you know whom I'm voting for. And wow, did I attract attacks. I had bots, I had incels, I had crazy guys. I'm sure it was mostly men. I mean, like 1,000 terrible comments on my Twitter site. And I called my friend Rebecca Solnit and I said, this is such an interesting psychosocial phenomenon. You know,
Mhm.
I'm under bot and incel attack. It's just wild. I didn't even say who I was voting for, but the assumption was there. I mean, there were even comments like, well, now I understand why the Buddha didn't ordain women. And I didn't write the guy back and say, excuse me, he did. But I said, Rebecca, how do you deal with this? What's your strategy? And she said, just block them. So I just went and blocked the whole gang. I was, I'm not, come on. That was, and by the way, it was right before my 83rd birthday. So I'm sitting with all my friends. They said, Roshi, how'd you feel about that? And I said, I was interested.
Hmm.
It didn't bother me in the sense of I felt personally, like scared or done. It was more like I felt, this is the world we're living in now. This is a world where men are so incredibly, some men, not all by any means, feel so such a lack of agency that they come after a woman like myself. And, you know, you just feel kind of like we've got to make a better world than this.
Hmm.
And it's not by alienating or living in the binary or alienating those who are uh, uncomfortable with, you know, our values and views. You know, we have to reach across the aisle. But also, I block them not to protect myself, but because so many people actually rely on me for goodness to see myself, you know, to see someone like myself with such, you know, kind of psychological violence. It was a kind of cleansing, if you will, um, for others, not myself, to for the people who have faith in the Dharma and have faith in
Hmm.
me and
Hmm.
so forth. But it
Hmm.
was just kind of fascinating to go through,
Yeah.
you know,
Uh,
and it's just women have to work usually twice as hard
mm,
for whatever they're doing, whatever institution they're building or whatever scholarship they're engaged in. And they also get attacked like
yes.
crazy.
Right. Right. And it's not the first time you were attacked, but I
Not
guess in
hardly.
that, I'm sure in that way it was different. I know that
Duck
our time is,
feathers.
yeah.
Duck feathers are important.
I know that our time is coming to a close. And so I want to ask you a question about something that you raised. And it's about standing in the entrustment, to stand in the entrustment. You know, there's one thing about standing in the entrustment, which is not easy to do. And then there's another about stepping into a legacy that's been left to us without anyone trusting us. So, how do you know, or what does a woman in Buddhism who is leading or thinking about leadership, what do they need to do to check in with themselves and maybe with others to know whether the stepping into a legacy without being entrusted is the path they
Yeah,
should step into?
it's a great question,
Because, yeah,
Jim.
because if we wait for the entrustment, it may never come.
May never come.
Yeah.
So I think really the thing here is integrity. And
Okay.
I'm reminded of Cinder Rushton, Dr. Cinder Rushton, who's, you know, our good collaborator and has the Bunting Chair at Hopkins. She has a series of questions. I think these are important questions for women to ask themselves. Well, actually, they're not questions, they're statements.
Hmm.
And they have to do with integrity. And the first one is, you know, I know what I stand for. And the next one is, I live by my values. And then the third one, she says, I inquire and am curious to discover what will really serve. And then I ask the hard questions. And then I speak out for what I stand for. Next is I listen to the call of conscience. The next is I am courageous despite risks. And then finally, two more. I take principled action or inaction, and I am responsible and accountable. These are such powerful statements. And women who actualize integrity um, are able, you know, when they live by these guidelines that Cinda has so brilliantly articulated, that no matter what happens to you, whether it's a health calamity or being attacked by your students or your peers or the government, being disparaged, when there's integrity and when these guidelines are actualized in your lived experience, um, this is what for me really matters. And I hope those guidelines are
Mhm.
ones that are, as you know, I've shared them just now, are ones that make sense to all of us who are here online. I'm sure they are familiar to you, Ayo, as
Mhm.
someone who lives
Yeah,
these guidelines as well.
yeah. Thank you. I try. Thank you. You know, I wish I could just check in with everybody on this call and say, don't y'all want to continue? I know you want to continue this conversation, but time is of the essence. And Roshi, I just want to say how much I appreciate you, love you, respect
Love
you,
you.
am inspired by you, and I look forward to being the recipient of the gathering of your writings for the times ahead. Thank you.
Well, right on. And I'll put those guidelines in the chat right now.
Okay.
Mm,
Here they go.
that would be wonderful. And we will be continuing the call for a little bit longer and giving people an opportunity to ask questions. So as Roshi's putting the guidelines in the chat,
They're in.
okay, let's see some hands raised, and you can raise your hand by going down to the little heart uh, and clicking on that at the bottom of your screen, and you'll see a place where you can raise your hand. So let's hear from some of you who have been listening and who might like to ask some questions. And Io, in the meantime, you might have one more question you have in mind.
I bet there are many questions coming forward, so
I'm
I'm
sure
good.
there
Yeah.
are. Okay, let's just give it a little bit of time. I've been so inspired by you over the years, Roshi Joan,
Oh,
having taught at Naropa for many years, and I know you've come and visited and been part of panels and conferences and things there. I wanted to ask you about your work with death and dying and what has really inspired you about that work.
it's a beautiful question, Liz. Thanks. And I just love you. Thank you for your great questions. You know, Liz, it is this encounter with mortality. And it reminds me of the night chant that we offer at the end of every day in session. It goes, life and death are of supreme importance. Time passes swiftly and the opportunity is lost. Let us awaken, awaken. Do not squander your life. And I think that that encounter with mortality can either crush a person or bring us to the sense of the preciousness of this human life. It's hard to get one of these. And when we get it, use it well, and particularly in service to others.
Mm, thank you. That's beautiful. Well, I see that Mary has a hand up. I think I see that Mary has a hand up.
Well, I see there's a question in the chat, which was, what was your best mistake?
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh, God. There have been so many. My friend, Zoom user, that's what's the name on the thing. I've made so many mistakes. You know, I've pushed people way too hard. I pushed myself way too hard. But in terms of the, best mistake, I don't know if there's been a best. There's just been a lot. And that's all I can offer. Yeah, there's been a lot of mistakes, and all of them have been good.
I have another question about power, how you work with it. You spoke quite a bit about, being confident and the importance of that. How do you work with people who might be a little bit intimidated by your power? How do you also invite them into agency? And then Nina, I see your hand up. I'll call on you in just a moment.
You know, how you're perceived by people at a distance is how they perceive you. It has, what can I do about their perception? But for the people who are close to me, my friends and my students, um, they know, I mean, people who know me well know that power in the sense of power over is not at all interesting to me.
Mm.
You know, I've spent most of my, or not most, but a good part of my teaching life teaching collaboratively with women and with men. And, you know, I also enter into with my close students, the students who've done Shokin with me, who are my, you know, proximate students, always from a perspective of inquiry, number one, and appreciation, number two.
Mm.
And, you know, sometimes I've slipped off of that where I've actually, you know, scolded people. And, you know, I see that is definitely a strategy that does not produce a good outcome. So, you know, I've learned from my students, particularly,
Mm.
that transparency, inquiry, affection, respect, honesty, integrity, um, and warmth.
Mm.
So it's not about power, although I might have more years on the cushion or more years anyway of just in the body. Those years have been characterized by a lot of mistakes. And
Mhm.
those mistakes have kind of been, I think, the best medicine that I've, you know, could have ever had, albeit, you know, some have been harmed by my mistakes, but hopefully I've learned from those mistakes. And so power is not something that I look on it, power over as a kind of poison,
Mhm.
but power with is a
Mm.
gift.
Thank you. Beautiful. And I see people putting their questions in the chat. I'd really like to encourage you to raise your hand so that Roshi Joan can see you and you can interact. All right, Nina, how are you? And what's on your mind?
Hi, I'm very good. Thank you for putting this on and thanks for being here, Oshi. My question is, it's a twofold question. A little bit, how do you, with all the projects that you engage in, how do you discern where to put your attention and energy? And also, how do you balance engagement in the outside world and retreat? And maybe how has that changed over time? I mean, it might be different now than it was maybe 20 or 30 years ago.
So, you know, I put my intention on what's before me. So that's kind of where I put my I mean that's what matters to me. And um, you know, right now I'm putting my attention on you and I'm appreciating your question. But there's another piece that I think is really important here, you know, for us as so-called leaders, but let's just say, you know, a lot of us in leadership are involved in some form of social or environmental service. And I'm going to go back to Cinda's, you know, extraordinary insight around issues related to how do we care for ourselves or keep ourselves resourced, you know, as we move through a world that the more that we're known, so to speak, or the more that people look to us for, you know, support, how do we keep ourselves healthy? And she has this, she's written a really important book on moral resilience. And in it, that she's got this piece that I often share with people around self-stewardship. It has four elements, and I just want to share this to all of you because if you know if you've heard me teaching or Cinda teaching, you know this already. But I think this is really important for people who have the kind of authority and responsibility that many of you have. So she says, self-stewardship embodies a commitment to know oneself. And I would say that practice is a medium for this experience of self-familiarization. And also therapy. I mean, I did years of therapy and it was very beneficial in the long run. So allowing yourself to become transparent to your own situation. And then the next is to responsibly and mindfully manage one's personal resources. Whether it's, your money, the space you live in, your body, your mind. You have to know yourself to actually identify what your personal resources are. And, you have to have a kind of commitment to responsibly manage those resources. And then this is one that's really important. And this is to recognize and compassionately respect one's limitations.
Mm.
Really essential. Again, going back to the first one, committing to know oneself. And the second is knowing your own resources and then knowing your limitations. And then the fourth one is to actually choose actions that are wholesome and life affirming. So this is kind of the fundamentals of self-stewardship that I feel so aligned with. It comes from Ayo Yetunde's work well. It comes from a woman who's worked at Johns Hopkins for over 30 years as their top ethicist, putting herself in harm's way, patient after patient, consult after consult. And it really takes a kind of what she calls moral resilience in order to sit in those charnel grounds. And the charnel grounds are much more present than they were even in, past years. And so self-stewardship is essential, part of the equation of what it is to be a good leader. And I'll put those in the chat right now if you wish.
Mm. Thank you, Roshi. Wonderful. All right, we'll hear from Lori, and that will be the end of our Q&A. I may run through a couple of the things in the chat after Lori speaks, but then we'll be complete. Hi, Lori.
Hi, thank you, Roshi Joan. I'm going to ask my scariest question. I remember several years ago you saying something about not being in a romantic relationship and how your partnership is with the Dharma. And I really identify with that. I don't know if that's the case now, but I have some insecurity about this. So I'm finding not being in with a partner now, it's freed up so much energy to serve the Sangha and to serve my community. It's just like everything I have left after work goes to that, which is lovely. But my insecurity is about like leading a lay Sangha where these people that look to me are in these relationships, they are in marriages and they are looking for a partner, and not having that myself. Like, how do I sit in this seat? And I feel like I don't have anything to offer them in that regard. So just some confusion around this for me. Thank
Well,
you.
what do you offer them? I'm curious.
I offer them, I feel like I do out loud everything that others do in private. So my practice, everything about my practice is available to them.
That is just wonderful. And why would that, I'm curious as to why would that be an obstacle to anyone who has chosen to enter the Dharma door of relationship as distinct from you who, has made a commitment to being fully involved with the Dharma.
Well, I'm wondering if this might be an excuse on my part. Like, am I using the Dharma as an excuse to not enter into that murky field of romantic relationships? I'm not sure.
And why would you need an excuse?
I don't, maybe, I suppose I don't.
And if it's the case that there's no real, excuse, why you know, I mean, it's wonderful you asked this question because I never thought about this actually, that I was somehow less able to understand the practice of and Dharma love of people in relationship than those who weren't in relationship. But also, I think there's something that you're asking about. Are you missing something? And, I would ask you, do you feel you are missing something?
Most days, nope. Most days.
Well, blessed be those days where you feel like you're missing something because then you can maybe explore,
Mm,
you know? Because in this practice that we're doing, that's really the work, I think, is where the rub is or the pinch is. Like, ugh, did I did I serve that situation, or am I missing something, or are my priorities off? Or who will take care of me when I'm old?
mhm,
Or what if I hurt myself now, and who can I depend on? And you know, and I think the thing is to go right into your values.
mm.
What is important for you at this time of your
Yeah.
life?
And the Sangha, like when if I ask myself all those questions that you're asking, like who can I rely on? It's always Sangha.
Yeah,
It's never one person.
wonderful.
Hmm.
Thank you for that
Thank you.
question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lori. As I kind of skim through some of the comments in the chat, it feels to me like you've addressed many of these things. They have to do with, what is the mindset one needs as a teacher, how to be kind of inclusive of men and women, how to work through challenges when your Dharma Center is not officially authorized. Yet there is a lineage kind of behind it. So I think many of these things you've already addressed. Maybe we could just end with a little bit with whatever you'd like to say in response to how to work with challenges.
Well, actually, the question that you just brought up, Liz, about when your Dharma Center isn't authorized, something, who knows about authorization, honestly? I think lineage is wonderful. I'm glad I braided into three over my years of practice. And I feel all three, alive in me. But we're in the Wild West. The Dharma is new here, where all of us are on a path of discovery. We shouldn't wait for, an imprimatur. We shouldn't wait for, some kind of blessing from Japan or Tibet or Sri Lanka or, wherever. Love should be what brings us into sharing the Dharma, not necessarily waiting to be fully authorized. And who authorizes you are the students and practitioners. It's all great to have the blessing from above, mostly from male teachers. Yeah, yippee. But the other side of the equation is, you stand or fall as a teacher because of your students.
Thank you so much.
It's
Wonderful. Well,
been an honor.
been so wonderful. Liz? Liz, you're muted.
I thought that was so many questions answered for so many people in different perspectives.
Yes, and
So
very
I'm going to
insightful.
kind of let go, and I'm going to go walk um, down the trail toward the main cabin where there's a little bite of food waiting for me, but only
Aw.
to say thank you all so much for the opportunity, and also the Lenz Foundation and Ayo. Oh,
Yes,
and
thank
Thank you,
everyone who's
Roshi.
been
Yeah.
online. It's so kind of you to put up with me for this 45 minutes.
you.
Come,
We're
come,
we're so
come
happy to do it.
visit.
And as I said, it's a co-teaching also of our founder, something I first heard about in 1981 that changed my whole life. The power of women innate, and to look at your life that way, to overcome the repression, and just like you were talking about from the beginning, and not asking permission. That's just one sign of the way people were stamped. So thank you.
Okay, well, we're now going to continue on with connecting with Sangha. But first, we're going to be hearing from Esmilda Abreu, and I will introduce her. She'll be working with us on a leadership practice. So, Dr. Esmilda Abreu is a professor at Pratt University, as well as a social activist. She's studied meditation and mindfulness and has had her own personal practice for more than 38 years, which she's integrated into her leadership development classes that she teaches. She received her master's degree in psychology and a doctorate in organization and management. Great combo. All right, Esmilda, we're very excited to learn from you.
Well, thank you so much, Susan. And I have to say, I feel so blessed. My well is full. Thank you, Ayo. Thank you, Roshi. Thank you, Lenz, for this enriching day. We started talking about um, seasons, and we've had the opportunity to step into these seasons as opportunities of knowing. And today we want to talk a little bit about boundaries with grace. And I love that Roshi talked about self-stewardship and how compassion was also a way of saying no. So I'm going to kind of continue with that because, in the springtime, you prepare your vegetable beds, you weed, you have plans to maybe plant some more. It's a time of possibility. It's a time to set the conditions for the summer's bounty, right? And so by the time that summer comes, everything's growing. And sometimes everything's growing all at the very same time. Things are growing at an exponential rate, and you don't kind of know what to attend to first. It can be overwhelming. The world is full force with both abundance, maybe of tomatoes, but also the weeds all at the same time, right? And you're still planting and you're also still harvesting. So this time, it's a time of discernment. It's a season to both prioritize and to savor. So I'm from the Caribbean, right? And I've got deep roots in many heritages. And so in this summertime, you need to decide what must be done, what must be delegated, what to creatively procrastinate, what to postpone altogether, and how to maximize your plans. But please also remember the summer is to be savored. The sunshine is here, right? And so you want to have the time for abundance, for swimming, for picnics, for your community, and you want to have time for gratitude. So you cannot step away from savoring. You cannot step away from el gusto, right? You can't. So we want to make sure that using our Buddhist teachings, we understand the season of abundance and the way that life's begun to flourish and that the garden is full and life is active. Opportunities, responsibilities, relationships, commitments, all growing at once. But the Buddha taught us that attention is precious. Just as the gardener cannot tend to every plant equally, a leader cannot give unlimited attention to every demand. We have to place our attention to shape our experience. So leadership in the summer is not about doing more. It's about practicing right effort, bringing energy to what is wholesome, what is beneficial, and what is aligned to our values. Very much like Roshi said, right? We want to ask ourselves those hard questions, and we want to practice no, compassionate no. Many people think that saying no is unkind, but Buddhist teachings offers us another perspective, yeah? And we can say no to compassionately protect our energies, to offer a wholehearted yes to what truly matters in the moment and to others. So boundaries are not about walls. They're not about limitations so much as wisdom and care. And when we overextend ourselves, we create suffering for ourselves and others. And we want to respond with clarity, create conditions for balance and well-being. So today, we're going to learn a very practical assertiveness communication tool called the no sandwich. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my slide. And here we are. And it is a very practical tool. It's got a basic formula. The no sandwich is first to acknowledge the request, whatever the request that's being pressed upon you is. Show that you understand the importance of the request, right? Honor that person. 2, state a clear no. That's the middle of the sandwich, y'all. Be direct and concise. And then 3, offer an alternative, maybe a resource or a next step. This is the path forwards for everyone's benefit. I'm going to give you first a professional sort of leadership example that I might teach my students. Positive, right? You start off with that positive sense of appreciation. Let's say you were invited to yet another committee, right? Another effort. Say, thank you for including me in this project. I feel honored, right? Now you offer the no. Clear and courageous no. Not wishy-washy, not so people walk away wondering, did they say no? Did they say yes? Right? No, it's clear and courageous. I currently have too many projects on my plate. I cannot offer you this time right now and do it justice. And then the third part, you end again positively. And this time, it's almost like a bridge into possible future collaboration because you don't want to end or close the door. And here you might say, yet, I would love to collaborate with you in the future and on any other project that you might have. Thanks for thinking of me, right? Now, we are leaders in all places, so I also wanted to offer you kind of a more home life example, right? A more personal example. And this one came to me as a mom, right? So Um, oh, can you make me a snack? My child says, right? And first, in the no sandwich, you start off with the yes, right? The positive, and you say what you can do. So, can you make me a snack, Mom? I can make you a lovely dinner at dinner time. I am busy and I will not make you a snack right now. That's the clear and direct no. And then finally, the last part of the sandwich. I will make you dinner at 5 p.m. So you have what you can do, what you won't do, and what you will do. And all of these things allow you to be clear in all the things that you need to achieve. So here's what I'd like us to do now. I'd like us to practice it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to pop the directions into the chat. Actually, where is this? Let me see if I can find the.
I can do it for you, Esmelda.
Yeah, that would be great. And so here's what you want to do is we want to basically introduce yourself and practice the no sandwich. You're going to go into breakout rooms. And what I'd like you to do is three things. Imagine a scenario from your life where you need to say no and practice giving a no sandwich for the request that you were given. And then deliver a clear request, a clear no sandwich. And ask yourself, was I clear? Was I respectful? Did I honor my priorities? Did I avoid giving false hope? Did I offer support where appropriate? Okay, so that's the first part. So you practice. And then what's lovely is if you could ask one another in your group, because you're all very wise, to share one insight from the talk that Roshi and Ayo shared with us, or from this practice of the no sandwich. And then the last part is this idea of being able to identify someone in your group who's going to come back and share the wisdom with us and give us an insight. So please pick one spokesperson to come on back, and then I'll join you all on the way back. Susan?
Thank you. So we'll be going into groups.
Welcome back to the large group discussion, everyone. This is your space to share any common themes that came up in your conversation, any of the insights from Roshi's interview, and even some of the experiences that you had sharing the wisdom with one another. And so I'm just going to open it up and encourage you to raise your hand and maybe share some of the things that came up. Pam, your hand's up.
Hey, what a great group. I really appreciated, Esmelda, that you even brought this up because I had my hand raised to talk to Roshi Joan basically about this very thing. Like there's just so much going on and how do I, like zero in and figure this out? So thank you so much for seeing into my heart. Thank you so much.
That is marvelous.
In our group, we had one woman share that she has a daughter with a health condition and a chronic health condition, and maybe asking for money that is beyond her wise means. So she practiced a no sandwich around that. She says, no, or she said, yes, what I can do is listen to support you in getting to a place that is economically viable for us both. What I can't do is deplete our inheritance so that it's no longer viable for us. What I will do is stay in dialogue with you until we are both in a position that is viably safe.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, isn't that great?
Oh, I'm so proud. So compassionate, clear,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Responsible,
Yeah.
being lovely.
Okay. There was one other, and this was well, this was me. It was about Heartland Peacemakers organization that's just started. So it said, my sandwich is, I can create the environment for our communication. I cannot offer all the information and connections that together we can so beautifully create to do this important work of peacemaking. I will work with you to create a council for those who will steward each of the Heartland Peacemakers initiatives.
Beautiful.
So,
Beautiful. I love
and
it.
and the other person was just kind of like new, like this is her first experience here, and she's just like really kind of like putting all the pieces together. But she was incredibly, I mean, she was such a great resource in our little group. Very clear, very insightful, and the three connections, the insights from what we've done today, the heart connection with Roshi Joan, don't ask for permission, and that Joan is so human, and by her transparent humanity is very inspiring.
Thank you so much, Pam, and thank you for the group. That was really rich. All right. Anybody else? If I have. Linda. Yes.
So my group was, there were only two of us there for most of the group, but two other people came and actually just added very good wisdom when they could join in. And yeah, we talked about how hard it was not to give a reason for saying no and like start making excuses. And that was one thing. But what we got out of the talks was finding the beauty in the broken world. Just like that was so precious. And then no mistakes. That just mistakes. And letting go and don't give up. Let go and don't give up. Those were kind of some of the things we talked about.
Thank you, Linda. Those are outstanding. We talked about in our group as well that sometimes women are tempted to just make it very, very nice, right? So you're almost trying to be too pleasing as you're doing the no. So we talked about make sure that sometimes a cracker is enough for the no sandwich. You don't need like a full brioche bun. It can be thin and to the point. Jerry,
And
you
how
had your hand
important
up.
the word no is important. Not
It
just
sure
to
is.
say I can't do that, but to really because that's the hard word to get out.
Yeah, that is. All right. Thank you, Linda.
Thank
That was
you.
beautiful. Jerry, you had your hand up. Oh, you're muted still.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, we can hear you. It works.
Well, I can't, my screen's all messed up, but anyway, I'm the other two women in my breakout room nominated me to be the spokesperson for our group, and even though I'm uncomfortable with it, and that's precisely why I think. So I'm sorry I can't remember the names of the other two women in our group. I hope they're maybe waving if they want to. The two of them connected right away, and one woman was in France and excited about talking to the other woman about her work and what she does and connecting. And so it was very cool to feel that enthusiastic energy and connection there. And then the other woman who had spoken earlier, talking to Roshi Joan, actually shared an example of a no sandwich that she thought she had done recently, or kind of inherently, kind of organically done without knowing the technique or the description for it. And I feel so grateful to be here. I only learned about it, just very shortly before it started, and have been a little bit distracted and feel very out of my league because I am not a leader in life, or, I've been disabled and declining in capacity and capability and nervous system regulation, unable to work and even be around a lot of people in recent years, and late life diagnosis of neurodiversity, and just many challenges. And so I was telling the lovely women in my group about not feeling like I've had agency, not feeling like I have even leadership over my own self and life, although I am resourceful and tenacious, and I have been really working hard to find resources and to learn. I've learned so much about neurodiversity, and attended so many beautiful, wonderful things online, and I'm involved in recovery and meditation circles and some Dharma Sangha stuff, and so passionate. And
Well, we thank you, Jerry, and you're making some impact. We have folks saying that you're glad you're here and that you shared that with us. So thanks so much
I
for your
just want to
share.
say, I know I'm rambling, but what I did was asked if they would allow me to just do a nutshell description of the no sandwich to make sure I understood it. And then I want to share this in case it's helpful for anybody else, because I've been really going inward and learning more about who I truly am and how I operate, and looking back at life through a lens of understanding, the neurodiverse aspects that I really didn't know about, which can be a late life, identity and spiritual crisis for women in particular. That I could use this no sandwich technique with myself, with my own, conflict about.
So do you want to use it? Let's be real concrete. 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Let's see how you do it.
Oh, well, an example would be like, what can and can't I do today, and how do I decide that? So I did not come up with an example of that in particular. And
you're feeling able to. That's good.
Yeah, no, I love, it's a great strategy and technique that I can use, because that's where my focus necessarily has to be now, is like, how do I navigate this new position of just a lot less capacity, and having to choose and prioritize,
I love that. Thank you so much, Jerry. That's really excellent. Is there anybody else? Another group? Alyssa.
Hi. I got to visit somebody I met last time, which was great. So it makes me feel like, these gatherings have been very helpful in connecting with people and seeing people. So there's some, continued recognition. So I'd love to see you all the next time as well. We talked about, that quote. I can't help but recall Judy Leaf's talk previously, and she also said, "Don't ask for permission." So here we heard from Roshi Joan again, and she added, "Don't ask for permission, period," which I'm just so helpful. I thought we talked about her encouragement about entrustment. And then her very last quote: stand and fall as a teacher because your students don't wait. That was really helpful. We in Shambhala are really working with, a democratic governing idea from a patriarchal lineage structure. So, we're working it through and trying to be as brave as possible. We talked about Cinda Rushton's list and how helpful that is for integrity. We talked about two examples. My partner there is a trained lawyer, and he said those are skills actually you learn in lawyering with the no sandwich. That a just flat no gets you nowhere, right? The proceedings don't continue on. I talked about it in some of my HR hires over the years, that I have always been very sensitive myself to getting rejection letters or no letters after sending applications. So making the commitment to keep in relationship with people by sending a letter, a personalized letter to people who apply. Anyway, it was just an idea of how do you stay in relationship with the person, that care and compassion. That certainly are Buddhist tenets. I also reminded my partner that in Shambhala and from our teacher Choyam Trungpa, he taught about the big no. And it's a still inquiry about the big no. How do you hold a big no without being a jerk, and staying in relationship? And how important, we've been talking a lot about that in Women in Shambhala, about what does no look like, with a history of sexual misconduct, which is not unusual to many of our communities. That's a big no, right? And then it comes with a set of responsible actions on our part. So wonderful. Thank you, Lenz. You're really killing it there in a good way.
What a rich conversation your group had, and thank you, Alyssa, for really outlining all the pieces, right, and the way that they can relate to our everyday lives, and that's beautiful. I know that we got a lot of requests in the chat regarding, will this be shared again? Will there be a recording? The answer is yes, and Liz is going to talk to us more about it. Before we pass to that part of the workshop, is there any last group that didn't get to share their insight of Roshi Jones and Ayo's beautiful interview? All right. Not seeing anyone, I will encourage folks to remember that the goal of leadership is not to harvest every field, but to cultivate meaningful awareness, wisdom, and compassion as we lead. So closing us out and giving us some guidance for next steps is Liz.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I think, I know I didn't want Roshi Joan and Ayo to even leave. They're just, what a nice interview and a beautiful conversation. So, yes, this is all being recorded. It will be, what we do is we take a few days, we, just put little edits onto it, make sure there's no weird patches, blanks, etc. And we'll have it posted on the Lenz Foundation website. There's a section called Women in Buddhism. There's a section specifically called Women Leaders in Buddhism. And if you go there now, you'll find all the videos from these gatherings are there, out for the public. And we put some kind of summary. The artifacts from these different talks, the slides, the chat is, and we'll do more to keep making sure it's all in there. It's in a platform called Circle. And Venus is one of the people helping today. She's on our Lenz Foundation Advisory Committee. She posted the link to Circle where you sign in. Very simple, just put your name and email, and then you can go right away into a section for women leaders in Buddhism. I would suggest you could wait a few more days and we'll have more stuff out there and posted. But our goal is to keep everything out there. We'll keep working on that Circle platform to make sure it's easy to use. It already had some of our work that we had on the talks it was actually on fundraising, revenue generation for nonprofits. It was something we did that ended last month. It was awesome. You're welcome to try that if you go in there and see it. So, very effective. But now on behalf of the Lenz Foundation, again, thanks all of you. We will have a talk again September 28. We're working on the content. And I wanted to also just announce, in case you didn't hear it, that our grant theme for 2027 is called Youth in the Dharma. And our goal there is to really encourage all the different groups that knew or have applied before for grants to come up with programs that bring more young people into Buddhist practice, into meditation, mindfulness, whatever the flavor and approach you're taking. As you know, many sanghas are aging. So the idea here is that, and you'll see it, if you go to our website again, under grant policy, you'll see a big explanation, pretty big, about what is there for Youth in the Dharma grants, applications. If you look at an application, that gives you more guidance as well. And the idea is that younger people participate. So it's not sort of the senior teachers that will guide and press, here's what you need to do. It's more, what are the younger people, Gen Z, effectively, which is up to about age 25 or 30. What are young people looking for? So that's our grant theme this year. But we're definitely continuing with women leaders in Buddhism. As you heard from the start, it's an essential core teaching. And these gatherings are so wonderful, and we appreciate them. So I think that's really it. Thank you very much for attending. Everyone who registered, we have you on our list. And if you feel like you're not getting our communications, just write the Lenz Foundation. It's info@frederiklenzfoundation.org. If you're not, you can go to that website and get the information you need. So thank you so much. And thanks, wait, one more second. Thanks to Barbara Smith, our tech. She really is helping. She is our director of administration, but she's moonlighting as a tech person for these gatherings, because it does help really with Zoom to have someone who kind of knows what they're doing. Thanks so much to Esmilda and to Ayo and to our whole group. Susan, thank you so much.